Emotional restraint is often interpreted as a sign of inner strength, especially in romantic contexts. When a man appears calm, composed, and unaffected by emotional turbulence, many people subconsciously associate this with stability and maturity. Psychology suggests that humans are drawn to figures who seem capable of handling pressure without falling apart, as this signals reliability in uncertain situations. A man who does not overreact emotionally may be perceived as someone who can be depended on when challenges arise. Cold or emotionally reserved men often project a sense of self-mastery. They appear to regulate their feelings rather than being ruled by them, which can create an aura of confidence. From an evolutionary psychology perspective, emotional control can be interpreted as a survival advantage. A partner who remains calm under stress may be better equipped to protect resources, make rational decisions, and provide a stable environment. Another psychological factor at play is emotional contrast. When someone is generally reserved, even small displays of warmth or affection feel amplified. This contrast can make emotional moments more impactful and memorable. A smile, a compliment, or a rare moment of vulnerability from a cold man may feel more meaningful than constant emotional expression from someone who is openly affectionate all the time. Cold men are often perceived as having clear emotional boundaries. Boundaries are psychologically attractive because they suggest self-respect and independence. People tend to value partners who do not rely excessively on external validation. Emotional distance can signal that a man has his own inner world, goals, and sense of identity that does not revolve entirely around romantic attention. There is also the idea of emotional safety. While it may seem paradoxical, emotional restraint can make some women feel safer. Predictability and consistency in behavior reduce anxiety. A man who is not emotionally volatile may be seen as less likely to create drama or emotional chaos within a relationship. Psychological research shows that emotional ambiguity can increase attraction. When a man does not immediately reveal his feelings, the uncertainty can activate curiosity and desire. The human brain is naturally drawn to unresolved patterns, and emotional distance creates a sense of mystery that keeps interest alive. Cold behavior can also signal high emotional standards. If a man does not open up easily, it may be interpreted as selectiveness. Being chosen by someone who is emotionally reserved can feel validating, as it suggests that affection must be earned rather than freely given. Another important element is projection. When emotional information is limited, people tend to project their own ideals onto the other person. A cold man becomes a psychological canvas, allowing others to imagine depth, intelligence, or sensitivity beneath the surface, even if it has not been explicitly shown. In some cases, emotional restraint aligns with cultural narratives of masculinity. Many societies have historically valued stoicism in men, associating it with strength, leadership, and control. These deep-rooted cultural scripts still influence attraction, even when individuals consciously reject traditional gender roles. Ultimately, emotional control does not inherently mean emotional unavailability. When balanced, it can reflect emotional intelligence rather than suppression. Psychology suggests that attraction often emerges not from excessive expression, but from the sense that emotions are present, regulated, and revealed with intention. Mystery plays a powerful role in attraction, and cold men often embody it effortlessly. When someone does not immediately reveal their thoughts, feelings, or intentions, the human mind fills in the gaps. Psychology shows that uncertainty can heighten emotional engagement, making people think more frequently and intensely about the mysterious individual. Scarcity is another key psychological principle. Cold men tend to offer less emotional availability, which can increase perceived value. When attention or affection is not freely given, it becomes more desirable. This dynamic mirrors basic economic principles, where limited resources are seen as more valuable. Emotional distance can activate the brain's reward system. When affection is inconsistent, moments of connection feel more rewarding due to contrast. This intermittent reinforcement is known in psychology to be particularly powerful in shaping emotional attachment and desire. Cold men often appear self-contained, suggesting they do not need validation from others. This independence can be highly attractive because it implies emotional completeness. People are often drawn to partners who seem whole on their own rather than seeking someone to fill an emotional void. Mystery also creates narrative tension. Humans naturally seek stories with unanswered questions. A reserved man becomes a puzzle, and the desire to understand him can translate into romantic attraction. Each small revelation feels like progress in an unfolding story. Psychological desire is closely tied to anticipation. When emotional responses are delayed or subtle, anticipation builds. This waiting period can intensify attraction, as the brain releases dopamine not only when a reward is received, but while it is anticipated. Cold behavior can signal depth. Silence and restraint are often interpreted as signs of complexity or introspection. Many people associate quietness with intelligence, emotional depth, or hidden sensitivity, even if these traits are not immediately visible. Another factor is control of pacing. Cold men tend to move slowly in emotional intimacy, which can create a sense of tension and longing. This slow pace contrasts with instant emotional openness, which may feel less exciting or less meaningful to some individuals. Psychologically, people are more motivated to pursue what feels slightly out of reach. Emotional distance creates a challenge, and overcoming challenges can boost self-esteem. Attraction may intensify when romantic interest feels earned rather than guaranteed. In healthy dynamics, mystery does not mean manipulation. When emotional reserve is natural rather than strategic, it can create a balanced dynamic where curiosity and desire grow organically over time. Attachment theory provides one of the most powerful psychological explanations for why emotionally cold men can feel so magnetic. According to this theory, early emotional experiences shape how individuals connect to others in adulthood. When a man displays emotional distance, it can unconsciously activate familiar emotional patterns, especially for those who learned early on that love was inconsistent, unpredictable, or conditional. What feels familiar often feels compelling, even when it is not consciously understood. For individuals with anxious attachment styles, emotional coldness can intensify attraction rather than diminish it. The lack of clear emotional feedback creates uncertainty, which increases focus and emotional investment. Psychology shows that when affection is inconsistent, the brain works harder to obtain reassurance, deepening emotional fixation. This can make a cold partner feel unusually important even early in the connection. Emotionally reserved men may also trigger a desire for emotional achievement. When warmth is rare, receiving it feels earned. Being the person who elicits vulnerability, affection, or emotional openness from a cold man can feel like a personal victory. This dynamic transforms emotional connection into a form of validation, reinforcing attraction at a deeper psychological level. Another important factor is emotional projection. When a man reveals little about his inner world, others naturally fill in the gaps. Women may project emotional depth, sensitivity, or hidden kindness onto a cold man, imagining qualities that have not yet been demonstrated. Psychology shows that limited information often increases idealization, especially in romantic contexts. Cold men are often perceived as emotionally strong, which can be mistaken for emotional health. The ability to remain composed, detached, or unaffected may suggest resilience and self-control. In reality, emotional restraint can stem from many sources, including emotional intelligence, learned suppression, or avoidance. However, attraction is often driven by perception rather than objective truth. Avoidant attachment styles also play a role. Some women with avoidant tendencies feel safer with emotionally distant partners because intense emotional closeness triggers discomfort. A cold man provides connection without overwhelming intimacy, allowing emotional distance to coexist with desire. This balance can feel ideal for individuals who value independence and emotional autonomy. Emotionally cold behavior can also reduce perceived emotional risk. When a partner does not immediately express strong feelings, expectations remain low. This can create a sense of control and emotional safety, as there is less fear of sudden emotional demands, jealousy, or dependency. Calm emotional environments are often associated with psychological stability. Power dynamics are subtly influenced by emotional availability. The person who appears less emotionally invested is often perceived as having more control. This perceived power can increase attraction, as confidence and self-sufficiency are deeply valued traits. However, this dynamic becomes unhealthy when emotional distance is used to manipulate rather than naturally expressed. Psychology also shows that effort increases perceived value. When emotional connection requires patience, interpretation, and persistence, it feels more meaningful once achieved. A cold man's gradual emotional opening can create a strong sense of bonding, even if the emotional content itself is minimal. Cold men may also embody emotional consistency. While they may appear distant, their behavior is often stable and predictable. For some women, this consistency feels safer than partners who express intense emotions one day and withdraw the next. Emotional steadiness can be interpreted as maturity. There is also a cultural influence at work. Many societies still associate masculinity with emotional restraint. These cultural narratives shape attraction on a subconscious level, reinforcing the idea that emotional control equals strength, leadership, and competence. Even when consciously rejected, these associations often persist emotionally. Another psychological layer involves emotional pacing. Cold men tend to slow down emotional intimacy, creating space for desire to grow. This contrasts with rapid emotional disclosure, which can sometimes feel overwhelming or artificial. Slow emotional progression allows attraction to build gradually, increasing anticipation and emotional tension. However, psychology draws a clear distinction between emotional restraint and emotional unavailability. While restraint can be attractive in early stages, long-term relational health requires emotional responsiveness. Without it, attraction may turn into frustration, insecurity, or emotional exhaustion. It is also important to recognize that attraction does not always align with emotional well-being. People may feel deeply drawn to emotional distance because it mirrors unresolved emotional patterns rather than genuine compatibility. Awareness of these dynamics can help distinguish desire from emotional repetition. In essence, cold men attract women not because they lack emotion, but because emotional distance activates powerful psychological mechanisms. Attachment patterns, projection, perceived strength, emotional challenge, and cultural conditioning all intersect to create attraction that feels intense, meaningful, and sometimes irresistible. Understanding these dynamics allows attraction to be seen more clearly. What feels like mystery or strength may be emotional reserve, what feels like depth may be projection, and what feels like love may be attachment activation. Psychology does not judge these responses, but it explains why they are so powerful. Ultimately, emotional coldness becomes attractive not on its own, but because of the meanings assigned to it. When emotional distance is interpreted as strength, selectiveness, or depth, desire naturally follows, shaping romantic attraction in subtle yet profound ways.